Hey. Help. No, really. What have I done? Okay. Starting off really strong. Hi, I'm Alexandria, and this is my very first ever book review slash booktube video ever. Basically, and I'm serious about it because I ordered these little mics off of Amazon. So the hobby has taken over, to be exact. I have watched countless YouTube videos of people reviewing and reading books, buying books. Really, that's just become my new hyperfixation. And so the other day I was thinking about how many books I have read, and I looked over to my bookshelf and I have read 14 books in the past like month and a half. And so I thought it was time to take the hobby and put it all over the internet. But basically, I figured for my very first YouTube video, I wanted to do a like almost a reading wrap up video um, for all of the books that I've read since moving to my new state. Because that has become something very grounding for me is reading while I'm kind of in a transition period. But this is a new hobby for me, but I'm taking it very seriously. Oh, speaking of, Jackson got me a Kindle for my birthday. So it's taken over our lives, basically, is what I'm saying. So we're going to go through rapid fire review and rate each book, kind of give plot points, things that I liked about the book specifically, and just what I thought about them for the tail end of August, all of September, and then the beginning of October. And then the top three books from like my this past season of reading, I wanted to kind of almost convince people why they should read said books. Something that really sticks out to me when I'm reading a book is just like the vibes they give off. You can kind of tell if you're going to like a book within like the first 30 pages just based off like the setting, the characters, like how the tone of each I don't know, just like the writing style in general. And so I wanted to see if I could create a mood board almost, to kind of convince people like if you like this aesthetic, you're probably going to like this book. And then to go along with that is I wanted to create a Spotify playlist for each one of my top three books of the season. The music is kind of informing the vibe while you read. And so I wanted to create three playlists and three mood boards for my top three books of the season, and then kind of convince you why you should probably read it and why, if you like those things, you would like the book. But yeah, so it should be fun. Let's get into it. Okay, so the very first books that I read in this like weird in between transition season that I'm in is all basically almost the entirety of Lynn Painter's just book history. I read Better Than the Movies in July, and truthfully, that book changed my life. I literally still think about it. It's my favorite book I've read. It is a YA romance, I guess you would say. And it was literally perfect. But the reason why I bring that one up is because that led me to just Lynn Painter in general. I have two more YA Lynn Painter books. I have The Do-Over and Betting on You. So I think I would say I'd give each of these also like maybe 4.5 star. Maybe Betting on You would probably be 4.5, and then The Do-Over would maybe be like a 4 stars. And the thing is, I think because I liked Better Than the Movies and Nothing Like the Movies so much, nothing really was gonna nothing was gonna top those. And so I think if I would have read these books later on, or like had read something in between, I probably would have given them each 5 stars as well. But I'll start with The Do-Over. This follows Emily Hornby on Valentine's Day. She's a high school student. This is a YA again, and it follows her day in on Valentine's Day with her boyfriend and her parents, and like just like an average day in high school. But then there is some magical realism in it where she has to relive the same day over and over again. This book, I would give a 4-star rating. I still loved this book, like truthfully, but I am someone who, like, I just know that anything that's like a Groundhog Day situation where we have to kind of go through the same day, I just tend to get not necessarily bored, but I'm just kind of like, okay, like I don't really want to read the same day over and over again, which this, like, truthfully isn't necessarily like that the whole time. Like, Lynn Painter does a really good job of um, creating different scenarios to where you really are like turning the page, like wondering what will happen. But I really loved the characters. Emily and Nick are just really precious, and the day they spend together, I don't want to give too much away, but it really, like, the romance does have time to build, which sometimes with like the do-over Groundhog Day situation, sometimes it doesn't, because you're just kind of still wondering why she's stuck in the same day, which I really wasn't with this book. I kind of just accepted that it was magical realism, and like we went on our journey and it was great. So yeah, I would definitely give this 4 stars. Okay, so the next Lynn Painter book I read was Betting on You. This book follows Charlie and Bailey. They are the main characters. They've met once before when they were younger, when Bailey's parents were divorced, and it Charlie just gave off bad vibes, bad first impression, and so Charlie has a nickname for him, and like will always think of him in that way of like just a really bad first impression when they meet in the airport. But then as they grow up, they end up going to the same high school and living in the same town. And it's just a really fun story about how like first impressions sometimes aren't exactly what we think they are. But it's also very YA. Like there's not too much depth going on, but I really appreciated how Bailey and Charlie have similar home lives, and I liked seeing how um, each home life, each way their home lives affected them, and how they came together, um, and how they can really help each other out. It's a little bit of a fake dating trope, which I'm quite partial to, which I really like. It just honestly is very cool to see Lynn Painter's writing styles. Like, even though all three of these books like have very similar like a writing style, that each character was still well formed, which I really appreciated. And how each one is, they're just unique and their stories are unique, and you can always find something in each of the main characters to relate to, which I think is really special. But yes, so this is, they're working in the same place, which is just a really fun thing, is like they're coworkers and they're in a really quirky company where it's like bowling and like entertainment and all these things, and they end up having to fake date so that Bailey can kind of break up her mom and her boyfriend, and it really is such a great story if you want to just like get lost in somebody else's world. And also they're just really cute together, and you're rooting for Bailey and Charlie pretty much the whole time. I would give this book 4.5 stars. So after I read 3 of Lynn Painter's YA books in a row, I still needed more. And so I found out that she also does adult romance books. And so I picked this up basically immediately. But this follows Olivia and her brother's best friend, Colin. And these two characters literally couldn't be any more different. It opens with Olivia. Basically, everything in her life has kind of fallen apart. She's kind of like a human tornado. She kind of just goes through life and she doesn't really have a plan, very type B, whereas Colin, her brother's best friend, is extremely type A. He has a really big corporate job, like very, very organized and always has a plan. And so it's almost like an opposites attract type thing. But basically, Olivia gets kicked out of her apartment because she set it on fire. Um, that's the thing that I also love about Lynn Painter, is like it's just so funny. Like all of her books just have such great humor. It's almost like watching an episode of Gilmore Girls because it's so quick-witted, which I love. But she has to move in with her brother and Colin for a month to where she can land back on her feet and find a job. But obviously, chaos ensues, as per usual for Olivia, where she gets a text from a wrong number, aka Mr. Wrong Number, and it's a "What are you wearing?" text. And so she ends up, answering the text back, and you just have to read the rest of the book to see what happens. But I really liked this book. It was a book that I genuinely didn't want to put down. It wasn't necessarily like there was suspense in it. I just really loved the characters. I loved Olivia and I was rooting for her and I wanted her to succeed. And I also loved Colin because he was like a gentleman to her, and I always appreciate that in books. I will say there are a few spice scenes in here. I don't really love spice scenes in books, but they weren't bad enough where like if you skipped it, like you weren't missing plot points, which I'll always be super open about because I do skip spice scenes chapters. That's just a me personal thing. But overall, like genuinely, like really enjoyed this book. Probably like, yeah, I'd give it 4.5 star. Maybe like 4.25. Just because you gotta be particular about those 4.5 and 5 star ratings. But truthfully, like loved it. Like it is a quick read. I think I read it within like 2 or 3 days. Yeah, it's not super long, but it will like give you like giddy, like kicking your feet, like cutie little feelings. So yeah, highly recommend. Just really just Lynn Painter in general, like highly recommend. So yeah, love this one. Next book that I read is Beg, Borrow, or Steal by Sarah Adams. This book, truthfully, I'll just go ahead and tell you 4.5 stars. Loved it. This is a true enemies to lovers trope. Loved it literally so much. The book follows our main characters of Jack and Emily. And again, like I said, like true enemies to lovers. They are both teachers at a school in Rome, Kentucky. Ells up. But basically, it just follows their kind of tumultuous relationship. It kind of goes back and forth, but um, it really picks up when Jack had moved away to be with his fiance, but then he comes back to Rome, Kentucky, to her small town that she is like very, very enveloped in. Like her whole family has lived there. This does have some really great family oriented things. Like there is like a sense of like family, but also found family. It's very Gilmore Girls again in the sense of very small town. Everybody kind of knows each other, especially the Walker siblings, which siblings and family really come into this book just with her being kind of the oldest and kind of the caretaker. Both of her parents have passed away, and so she is kind of the one keeping the family together. Whereas Jack, like he has broken up with his fiance, called the wedding off, and has come back to Rome. And Emily is kind of shocked because she's like, "Why would you come back here?" There are some like plot like twist in this book, which I really enjoyed. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it for you. Just a really fun book. Like it was just fun to read. I blew through it. It's not super long, but it was enough to where at the end I like wanted more. And if I'm not mistaken, I think there is an epilogue. Yes, so there's an epilogue at the end. I love when authors like if they're not expecting to do a sequel, like give me an epilogue. Like I really need to know what happens to these characters. I liked Sarah Adams' writing too. Like I liked how she's very like straight and to the point, but when there is time and there is a purpose for imagery, she does throw a lot of beautiful language in there, almost kind of like poetry, which is really, really fun. I'm excited to read more of her books actually. This one like got me excited to read more of her romance books, so 4.5 stars. These next books were probably the catalyst to why I decided I needed to make a YouTube video about all of this, because I really just needed to talk through them. Like I really just needed to get them out in the open, and yeah, and so here we are. So these books are both from Ashley Poston, which is 7 Year Slip and Sounds Like Love. And I have to be so completely honest with you guys. I picked up 7 Year Slip because I had seen it all over Book Talk and I really liked the cover and I was like, okay, I really need to read it. And I picked it up not realizing what it was. This is a magical realism book, and I didn't realize that. Like, I didn't even really read the back. I just knew Book Talk loved it, and so I needed to read it. Basically, it follows two characters, Clementine, which I freaking loved that name, and Iron. I think it's Iwin. Iwin. Let's pull it. No, I win. But then he goes by James. So Iwin/James. It follows those two main characters, but Clementine has just lost her aunt, and her aunt left her New York City apartment. It takes place in New York, which I love books that take place in New York. I think there's like something so magical about that. But I think maybe the reason why, like, just to be completely honest, I did not love this book. And I think maybe I just wasn't in the mood for it or something. Like, I don't know. But I was really, really stuck on the fact the apartment ends up being magical. And I think with the do-over with Lynn Painter, like I could just accept that we were living the same day. But for some reason, my brain just like couldn't understand the whole like concept of a magical apartment, which is crazy because I literally live in Disney World. Fun fact. But I just like couldn't put that out of my mind. And then for some reason the romance between Iwin and Clementine, like it just there was nothing and then it was all at once and it just kind of like there wasn't a slow build up like when it's not all of a sudden and like very steamy, which like this book really frankly was. Honestly, I didn't hate it. Like I would give it a 3.5 stars, because I cared for the characters. Like I cared what happened to them. Whereas in this book, like I just don't know. I also, like, to be fully transparent, I had no idea these books were written by the same person. Even though fully at the top it says in big letters like Ashley Poston. And then this one, this was really what got me, because after I read this book, I was like, that really reminded me of 7-Year Slip. Fully on the front, New York Times bestselling author of the 7-Year Slip. Like, and I read them back to back. And so I think maybe if I would have not read them so close together, maybe I would have a different opinion on them. But this one, I would give a 3 star. I did not really want to finish this book. I wanted to DNF it so quickly, but I just didn't care about the characters. Whereas like in this book, like I genuinely wanted Clementine and Iwin to end up well and like end up together. This follows Joni and what is even his name? Like I literally can't even remember this man's name. And I think it's because he gave me the ick. Like, oh, she calls him Sasha, but his name really isn't Sasha. And so this book follows Joni and then Sasha, but like his name actually isn't Sasha. It's a whole thing. But basically this is also another magical realism book, um, where they can hear each other in their heads. So like every thought that they each have, the other can hear. I don't know. And then there's like an element of music and how they're hearing the same melody, but then the melody ends up being something different, which I don't want to spoil it if you do read it. I don't know. I liked the setting a lot though. Like this is very much like a late summer read. Like reading this in August would have been like pretty ideal, because it takes place in a beach town off of the Outer Banks in North Carolina, and it follows a family kind of dynamic where Joni's mom is struggling with dementia, which actually is a pretty heavy topic now that I think about it. So both of these books kind of deal with hard things. I don't know, but it kind of follows their family and how their family owns a theater, where music people come and play music, which is honestly really cool. And I liked that kind of vibe of having, a family almost business, and honestly liked the family parts of this book more than I did the romance. The romance was like, I don't know. Again, like if I would have read these separately, like with some things in between, I probably would have liked them more. But now that I know what kind of books that Ashley Poston writes, I will feel more prepared when I read her next book, because I did like how she writes. Like, it's very imagery focused, and I really loved all of the, like, while I was reading, I felt like I was being whisked off to wherever she was writing about. So like in this one it was New York, and this one it was like in Vienna Shores, North Carolina. So truthfully, like, I really liked it. But this just, I cared more about her family and what she was going through in her corporate life. She's a music producer, and I cared more about her in that than the romance. And the romance seemed to just like get in the way for me. But overall, I would give this one a 3.5 stars and this one a 3 stars. Oh, another thing about these, something that still did not click in my mind is the two main characters, Clementine and Iwin, in this book end up in this book. And I'm reading Sounds Like Love, and I'm like, Iwin and Clementine, that sounds so familiar. It's the same. It's the same queen. Like, really need to use our context clues. Anyways, that was cool, is how like both of these books, like, their worlds are connected, which I really appreciate. I think that's really cool. I love a crossover episode. The next book that I read, this was like my first step into fall reading, which was really fun. But this is called Falling Like Leaves. This is a Bramble Falls novel, which, if I'm not mistaken, like, this author has multiple stories within this kind of town almost. This is set in Bramble Falls, Connecticut, and this follows our main character Ellis as she is kind of going through her last year before moving to college. So she's in high school. She's a senior in high school. And this has a little bit of family drama to it, which honestly I kind of liked. It was kind of a fresh perspective, just because I had been reading so much like hardcore romance. Her dad is a really high up like corporate guy, and he really looks forward to Ellis following in his footsteps. He's kind of just like one of those stereotypical work dads, like all he does is work, and the only time he really pays attention to Ellis is if, you know, she's working with him in her internship, or if they're talking about her college plans. But basically, this book follows Ellis when her mom tells her that she is going to spend a couple of months in Bramble Falls, Connecticut, to live with her aunt and her cousin. This is also where she re-meets Cooper, who she knew as a child. And they were best friends. Like, he was her first kiss. Like, they were really, really close. But then when she would go back to New York, they kind of lost touch. And so this story really is about them reconnecting. Which, like, if you look at the cover, like, literally so precious. Hello. And then I also have like the sprayed edges version, which is just like so cute. Like, looking at this cover, like, I picked it up immediately just because it looked so cute and so fall. I would give this book a 4 stars. Like, this was a really great fall read. I enjoyed the vibes were there. Literally on the cover, or on the back, it says perfect for anyone who starts up their annual Gilmore Girls rewatch at the first sign of fall. Like, truly great fall vibes. I really loved Cooper. I thought he was a great character. I liked his relationship with Ellis. I liked how he was honest with her, and there were some moments where like I was really frustrated with Ellis, but in the end, like, it was okay because she turned it all around. um so there are some moments of like, what are you doing? Like, don't do that. But I mean, that just makes you want to keep reading the book. So yeah, this is by Misty Wilson. I'd give it 4 stars. This is great if you are wanting a fall cozy book. There's some humor in it, which is really great. The characters were well developed, which I have really learned my love for character building. And I usually tend to like books that are more character based more than plot based. Like, if your book has characters that I like and that I'm rooting for, I'm probably going to like it, even if the plot is kind of iffy. Um, which is why these books I just don't understand. So yes, so I really liked this book. 4 stars. Misty Wilson slayed this one. The next book that I read is Hello Stranger by Catherine Center, and I really enjoyed this book. It took me a little bit to kind of get into the rhythm of this book for some reason. It wasn't necessarily that it was slow. I just kind of was like I don't know if I was distracted when I first started reading this or something, but I was like, it just didn't grab my attention the way like other books had. But I really, really enjoyed following our main character Sadie's story and everything that she goes through. Basically, Sadie is a portrait artist, which is so niche, and like I really enjoyed reading kind of what her life is because I know there are people who literally do that for a living. So it's kind of a different job to read about rather than like a teacher or a lawyer or something like that. So that was kind of cool. But unfortunately, she has a really bad accident. She gets hit by a car, and then she actually gets something called prosopagnosia, I think is how it's pronounced, where she can no longer see people's faces. Every time she looks at someone's face, it kind of looks like a jumbled jigsaw puzzle, is kind of, I think, how she described it, which is extremely problematic for someone who it literally her job is to paint faces, look at them, kind of make them art, and that is literally how she pays rent. But basically the story just follows her journey through that, and how she kind of picks herself back up, and how the community around her also helps her do that. There's a romance in there with one or two people. I'm not going to spoil it, but the romance ended up being like one of my favorite that I've read, just because it was very authentic, and it seemed so natural when I was reading it. There is no spice in this book, which I really, really appreciated. It's just a really great story of overcoming as well. And something that I also appreciated is in the back of the book, she does write a little note about the condition and about kind of the more scientific things, and how people can be born with it, people can acquire it like Sadie did. Sometimes it goes away, sometimes it doesn't. So I really appreciate that in that book. And I just can't wait to read another Catherine Center book. Like, I loved it. It was just so heartwarming and positive, and like the book left me feeling like lifted up and encouraged, which I really enjoyed. So definitely 4.5 stars. Top three, and now I'm going to show you what they are and why I think that you should read them. So my first top three book is Nothing Like the Movies by Lynn Painter. This book, truthfully, like altered my brain chemistry. I read the first one in July, called Better Than the Movies, and this book picks up when both of our main characters, Liz and Wes, have been in college for a while. Well, mostly Liz. If you read it, you'll understand. But it talks about just family and found family, and how life comes and things happen, and how we deal with those like curveballs, which is funny because Wes does play baseball for UCLA in this book. But just how we handle curveballs in our lives, and how um, community and people around us really like kind of affect the way our lives go. I obviously Liz and Wes are like just so special. If you've read Better Than the Movies, like their love and like how they got together. Like they were a fake dating couple, and there is also a little bit of fake dating in this book, which I think is funny. So I literally can't recommend it enough. This is the like mood board for it. It is very like college, and even though it's not necessarily a fall book, like it does give fall vibes just because they're going back to college. Like it goes throughout the year, and it's baseball, and it's like friends and parties and Halloween and dressing up and fig dating. And so that's literally basically all my favorite books kind of sound like that. And then there's a playlist that actually Lynn Painter, I think, or someone close to Lynn Painter kind of curated, but I also created my own. There are some songs that are like name dropped in here that I like had to put in there, because if you've read Better Than the Movies, and Liz like is a huge music person, she wants to like create soundtracks, and she created a playlist of Liz and Wes. And so like music to this book like really just was a no-brainer. So I really liked listening to the playlist as I read this book. It just kind of made everything more personal. So if you like this kind of aesthetic and you like some of the songs on this playlist, I highly recommend this 5-star book. Okay, so my second 5-star book from this series of reading is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. Kind of going off of the Nothing Like the Movies vibes, this book, like, I just still am thinking about. Like, I'm still thinking about the characters. I'm still like in awe of everything that happened to them and how they came together and how they were friends and just like their whole relationship. I just really enjoyed. This is kind of the aesthetic for it. It's very beachy, vacationy, catching flights and feelings and friends and close proximity and just like, yeah, just wonderful vibes. 5 stars. Poppy and Alex are perfect. I can't wait for the Netflix movie. Like 10 out of 10. Could not recommend this enough. I also created a playlist for them. I only put songs that Poppy would play in the car that Alex would probably hate. There is a scene in this book where they are on a road trip, and that does happen. So I kind of tried to like use a little bit of that in the playlist. But yeah, the aesthetic and the playlist, they kind of go together. So hopefully that convinces you, if just Emily Henry in general won't. So love this book, 5 stars. Next 5-star book, I couldn't necessarily pick one of them because it is a series. So I'm kind of looping all three of them together, but majorly starting with the first one, which is Assistant to the Villain. This book is a fantasy book. It is a slow burn romance book. There are magical creatures. There is magic. There is like friendship and love and family dynamics and plot twists and a magical frog, which is just the cutest thing I've ever seen in my life. It is frankly a perfect book. Like, I'm still thinking about this book. I'm actually gonna, these are all three of them. So it starts with Assistant to the Villain and then goes into Apprentice for the Villain. And then it had the most recent book that I think literally came out in August is Accomplice to the Villain. All three of them are equal in my mind. Like, all three of them are 5 stars. But I'll stick with the first one because you have to read the first one before you can read the other ones. But basically, this is just such a great way to enter fantasy if you've never read a fantasy book. Sometimes when I pick up a fantasy book, there's just so much world building that I get very overwhelmed that I can't like really grab onto the plot because I'm still trying to figure out what the world is. But with this, Hannah Nicole Mayer does a really great job of giving you the facts that you need and like for as long as you need them, and then when something new comes in, she explains it so clearly that you know exactly what's going on the whole time. The characters are so lovable. Evie Sage is the main character, and we follow kind of her experience with the villain. You also get different points of view. I think in the first book, you get Evie's point of view and then the villain's point of view, which I love. And it's very clear and easy to follow when you're switching between their point of views, which I think is kind of rare when you have different point of views. And then as you move into the other books, you do get other characters' POVs. But again, like each character is so unique and just authentic that like each chapter is kind of different and you kind of get to see those different points of views even though it's the same plot going on. There is so much wonderful imagery in these books. The aesthetic is very fall, very spooky Halloween. So literally like this is the perfect time to read these books, truthfully. And then I would say like the playlist, I think I had the most fun creating this playlist just because Evie and the villain, like they deserve a great playlist. And so I've kind of put songs that I either listened to when I read it or something reminded me of those songs when I was reading these books. So this aesthetic is very like fairy and dark academia and just honestly just like fun, spooky, wonderful things. So yeah, 5 stars. Will never shut up about these books. Literally can't get over it. And with that, we have finished my 14 book reviews from this really weird in between transition season that I'm in. Genuinely, like, I have loved getting to read all of these books, and I'm already, like, even talking about all that I've read, like, I'm just excited for the next couple of books that are on my TBR. Um, yeah, I just think this is going to be a really cool way to kind of document my process and document my newfound hobby that I really loved, and like even talking about them was fun. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much if you watched all of me yapping away about books. If you read any of them, DM me, text me, comment down below all the good things because I want to hear other people's thoughts. That was another major reason why I wanted to make these books, like these book videos, because I wanted to hear if anyone else went through the same roller coaster of emotions that I did when I was reading them. So the hobby is hobbying. So yeah, I'm excited, and I guess I'll see you in the next reading video.